In this demo, we're going to be talking about the power and flexibility of the Red Hat CloudForms control and policy engine. So I'm going to log into the admin portal of CloudForms as the admin, and I'm going to navigate to the control and policy engine of CloudForms. So when I navigate there, I'm going to see a policy for the Shellshock vulnerability. So here, CloudForms is going to check to see if that machine is vulnerable to Shellshock by looking at the package name, the version number of the package, and the release number. And if it finds that this machine has that properties, then it's going to mark it as non-compliant. So you can see that this RHEL 7 machine has a control policy attached to it. So when I navigate a little further to see what that control policy is, I can see that this particular the policy is the demo for the Shellshock vulnerability, the one policy that we just looked at earlier. So that policy is assigned to this virtual machine. So I'm going to go exit out of the control policy engine, and you can see that when I look at the summary view of the VM, that this VM is non-compliant to that assigned Shellshock vulnerability policy. So when I look deeper to see why it's not compliant, you can see the reason it's not compliant is because of the failure with this Shellshock vulnerability control policy. So I'm going to go back to my VM. And when I go back, I can and I'm going to notice that there's all the packages, init process, and files, and I can dig deeper by clicking on packages, and I can see here's all my packages with release and version numbers. So now I'm going to fix this vulnerability by pushing the Shellshock remediation button in CloudForms, as you saw that I did. That's going to launch an Ansible playbook for remediating that VM against Shellshock. So if I look at the jobs, I can see that that job is being run. The Shellshock remediation playbook is being run inside Ansible Tower. And you can see now it's been successful, so that now our VM is remediated against Shellshock. So what that playbook does is update install the latest bash package. So I'm going to launch a analysis scan on this machine just to make sure that CloudForms knows about this updated bash package. And then when I relaunch the check, now you can see that the machine is now compliant. And then if I dig a little bit deeper, you can see that the machine is now passes the compliance check for the Shellshock vulnerability. Now we're going to talk about how to manage security of Openshift from Red Hat CloudForms. So I'm going to log into CloudForms again, and I'm going to go into the control engine. So in the control policy, there's a control policy here for OpenSCAP profile. So you notice that there are 3 control policies assigned to this control policy profile. So we're going to look at all 3 of them, and we'll start with the first one, which is named here OpenSCAP. You can see here, all it does is CloudForms checks to see are there any container images that has a severity high vulnerability. If it does, mark it as non-compliant, and I want you to annotate the CloudForms is going to annotate that image so that that container image is prevented from ever running in Openshift again. The next control policy checks to see just whenever a new container image is discovered, a smart state analysis scan is run on that container image so that CloudForms knows what's inside that container image. The last control policy, when the container image analysis is complete, automatically CloudForms is going to check the host or VM compliance after the scan is complete. So now if I go to container providers, and I can see here my Openshift provider. So what I'm going to do is look at the control policies that are attached to the Openshift provider. You can see that this OpenSCAP profile with those 3 control policies is attached to the Openshift provider, which means that all container images in this provider will have this policy profile applied. This OpenSCAP policy profile is going to be applied. So I'm going to exit out. So next, I'm going to go into and look at that container image. So I'm going to start with the container and then go into the container itself. And then from the container, I can see the attached the actual container image that's living in that container. And so now inside the container image, I can see the packages, the OpenSCAP scan results. And here, notice that the scan results of this container image, all you have to do is click on it to see the results. So here you can see that there are several severity high failures. You can see in red. So which means that you can suspect that all of the things we saw earlier in the control policy is going to apply. So I'm going to go into Openshift now directly to Openshift, and I'm going to try to launch a container with this container image that has all these high severity vulnerabilities. You can see here that I'm in the Welcome PHP app. I'm going to add to the project. I'm going to deploy an image. I'm going to select that severity high vulnerability image. And I'm going to try to deploy this the image with with all those known severity high vulnerabilities. So I'm just going to say create now. So now let's now try and deploy this image with all those container with this image with all those severity high vulnerabilities. So the Openshift is now trying to spin up a container with this vulnerable image, and you can see that that deployment has failed. So let's look a little deeper into why that deployment has failed. You can see here we get an error. It says error creating pod. Forbidden this image is prohibited by policy. So notice that the reason the deployment failed is CloudForms flagged this vulnerable image when you try to. So when you try to start a container with this vulnerable image, Openshift is going to prevent this with this annotation on the policy annotation that was set by CloudForms.